This lesson will cover 2 Chronicles, chapters 11 and 12. In 10, we learned about the deeds and the happenstance that would cause the nation of Israel to split, and that is explained more carefully in 1 Kings, chapter 11. Let us review that material. Why did the nation split? Solomon had many misdeeds in the end of his reign. He had foreign wives. He had 700 wives, 200 concubines. They came from many foreign nations. He allowed them to build altars on the Temple Mount. He even went there to worship. Some of these gods were, for example, Chemosh required a child sacrifice. And he developed some adversaries, Syria for one, and of course Jereboam, who was of the house of Ephriam, and he went to Egypt until he heard that Solomon was dead. Rehoboam took the throne, and Jeroboam came in, and of course in the last chapter we saw Rehoboam do some very foolish things. Rather than listen to the elders, he listened to young advisors and told them that he would be 10 times tougher than his father, and if they were whipped with a whip, he would whip them with a scorpion, and that would be a whip with blades in it that would slice the back. And these Jeroboam and these others had been working hard to build this wall, and they simply wanted their load lightened. So the prophet told Jeroboam, Abiah, to give him a name, and he tore his robe into 12 parts, and he told Jeroboam to take 10, that would be 10 tribes, to the north. And Jeroboam at this point had God's promise if he kept God's ways, and we will see that that won't happen. And the king's scepter was promised to remain in the house of Judah. When the split came, Judah and Benjamites and Levites remained in the south, and we saw that Rehoboam was an arrogant person. And now to begin chapter 11, 2 Chronicles, and verse 1 reads, And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he gathered of the house of Judah and Benjamin 184,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against Israel, that he might bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam. Now that would be 180,000 fighters. And of course, his tax collector, we learned in the last chapter, Hadoram, was stoned to death. Now he is planning brother against brother war, not something God approves. Verse 2. But the word of the Lord came to Shimei, the man of God, saying, 3. Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all Israel in Judah and Benjamin, saying, 4. Thus saith the Lord, Ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren. Return every man to his house, for this thing is done of me. And they obeyed the words of the Lord, and returned from going against Jeroboam. And this is God speaking through this prophet, and he is saying, you are not to fight against your brethren. And Rehoboam listened. 5. And Rehoboam dwelt in Jerusalem and built cities for defense in Judah. Actually, he fortified 15 locations. And as we go through here, we will see that every one of them is to the south and not to the north, where Jeroboam had taken the 10 tribes. He built even Bethlehem and Etam and Tekoa. And of course, Bethlehem, the birthplace of both Benjamin and Jesus. And Tekoa, these places are south of Jerusalem. 7. And Bethsur and Shoho and Adullam, and these are south of Hebron. 8. And Gath and Mareshah and Ziph. Ziph, if you remember, was one of those hiding places of David, and Gath, of course, exists between Judah and the Philistines, and Mareshah is in a low country. And all of these places are south of Jerusalem. In total, he fortified 15 cities. 10. And Zorah, Ahalalan, Hebron, which are in Judah, and in Benjamin, fenced cities. 11. And he fortified the strongholds and put captains in them, and store of victuals and of oil and wine. So he has fortified places, and he has put men in there, and he has put supplies. 12. And in every several city he put shields and spears and made them exceeding strong, having Judah and Benjamin on his side. So he has equipped it with men, with supplies, and with what he needs to fight. 13. And the priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted him out to their coast. The Levites who went with Jeroboam, remember, Levites were assigned to every tribe. Those who got up into the north and saw that false worship, golden calves, they fled and went back to Judah because they knew the law and they knew they were to worship in Jerusalem and not to worship any golden calves. 14. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possessions, and came to Judah and Jerusalem, for Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto the Lord. Whose job was it to execute the worship of the Lord? The Levites. And Jeroboam was choosing priests from anyone who would step forward. 15. And he ordained him priests for the high places, and for the devils, and for the calves which he had made. So he has made his 2 golden calves, and he has ordained his own priest. He has ignored the Levitical law, that these are to be from the house of Levi. 16. And after them, out of all the tribes of Israel, such as set their hearts to seek the Lord God of Israel, came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto the Lord God of their fathers. So we see it was not only the Levitical priest who saw that the worship in the north was wrong, but also others who were had their hearts set properly to seek the Lord, left the north Israel and went to Judah. 17. So they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and made Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, strong 3 years. For 3 years they walked in the way of David and Solomon. So these persons who came created strength. It will last 3 years. And if you remember, Rehoboam's reign won't be nearly as long as Solomon and David, but both Solomon and David did not do as well in the latter part of their reign as in the first. Now, David was never ever involved in idolatry, but Solomon, those wives brought in Molech and Ashtaroth and Chemosh and terrible, awful false worship, and he was foolish enough to participate. Now, Rehoboam, we will see, will have a mere 17-year reign, not 40 as did Solomon and David. 18. And Rehoboam took him Mahalath, the daughter of Jeremoth, the son of David, to wife, and Ahiel, the daughter of Eliab, the son of Jesse. So he is choosing some good stock for wives, not foreign. Now, Jeremoth is not in David's lineage in the Bible. This person is likely the offspring of one of his concubines. And when it says that this one was the daughter of Eliab, the son of Jesse, the generations don't line up. Jesse, of course, would have been David, a grandfather of not a father, because we have no words in the Hebrew language for great and grand to establish generational years. Everyone is called a father. So Eliab would have not been her father, but likely her grandfather. 19. Which bare him children, Jeush and Shemariah and Zaham. And these sons are listed in birth order. Notice that the first one is Jeush. 20. And after her he took Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, which bare him Abiah and Attai and Zizah and Shelomith. Shelomith means peaceable, and once again, she would have been a granddaughter, and of course, Absalom was a son of David, and he tried to take the throne from David, as a matter of fact. And his son, David, Absalom, had a whole sister named Tamar, and she was raped by Ammon, and Absalom killed him, and he had to leave, and then he tried to take the throne from David, but God had sworn that the throne would never pass from David's house. Of course, we are going to see that it certainly will when Judah is taken captive. Zedekiah will be the last king, but that promise is for the Messiah, who will come from the root of Jesse and from the house of David. 21. And Rehoboam loved Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, above all his wives and his concubines, for he took 18 wives and 80 concubines, and begat 28 sons and 80 daughters. Now, we were told in Deuteronomy 17 that the king was not to multiply wives. Well, this is multiplication, but not nearly in the excess of David and especially Solomon. 22, and Rehoboam made Abiah, the son of Malachah, the chief, to be ruler among his brethren, for he thought to make him the king. Well, he is going against the law taught in Deuteronomy 21, 15, 16, and 17. It says, doesn't matter if you love the wife or hate the wife, the firstborn is the rightful heir. So that first child is Jewish, should be the next king, and not this child of this Ma'akah. 23 to complete this chapter. And he dealt wisely and dispersed of all his children throughout all the countries of Judah and Benjamin unto every fenced city, and he gave them victuals in abundance, and he desired many wives. So we are told that he sent those sons away from Jerusalem, but he provided for them and tried to keep them happy, because they would not have been happy at the naming of Abiah the king, which he did not deserve. Chapter 12, verse 1. And it came to pass, when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and had strengthened himself, he forsook the law of the Lord, and all Israel with him. And we learn, of course, in 1 Kings chapter 14 that he established high places of worship. Now, they were up there worshiping God, but they weren't supposed to be in high places. And of course, he had altars to Ashtaroth, who was a false god. So you can see he is turning away, and quickly. First 3 years were good. 2. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, because they had transgressed against the Lord. Now, did Egypt care that they had transgressed against the Lord? Not one whit. And remember that where were these fortified cities? They were to the south to protect them against Egypt. So when we forsake the Lord forsakes us. So he just backed up and let Shishak come in against Rehoboam. And of course, that's the 5th year, and Shishak was the first of the 22nd dynasty in Egypt. Verse 3. With 1,200 chariots and 70,000 horsemen, and the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubim, the Sukkiim, and the Ethiopians. So he's brought 1,200 chariots, 60,000 cavalries, and unnumbered foot soldiers, and then he has 3 allies who came with him. So remember that Solomon showed the Queen of Sheba everything he had. So the word is out amongst these nations. They know what is in that temple. 4. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah and came to Jerusalem. He whacked right through those 15 cities that Rehoboam had fortified with men and with weaponry. 5. Then came Shemaah the prophet to Rehoboam, and to the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem, because Shishak had said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, ye have forsaken me, therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Now, we were told in Exodus 34:14, they're not to worship false gods, and these are God left him in. Even Shishak recognizes, now this is not a conversion. He is a heathen, but he knows that their God has forsaken them. 6. Wherefore the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, The Lord is righteous. And that word in the Hebrew is Sodek, very much like Zadok, which means just and right. When we exalt ourselves, whether we be just who we are or Jeroboam, we will be brought down, because it is God whom we should exalt. 8. Nevertheless, they shall be his servants, that they may know my service and the service of the kingdoms of the countries. So they are going to see some oppression here from Shishak, who's come up out of Egypt. 9. So, Shishak, the king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He took all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made. Now, some of this wealth had come down through from the time of Moses. There were 2 treasuries in the temple, if you recall. There was the treasury, and then there was the dedicated treasury, and the dedicated treasury included things that had come in from spoils of war. And if you remember earlier chapters, what was silver like in the time of Solomon? Why, it was just like rocks. There was so much of it. And they've taken these beautiful golden shields. He has hauled it all away. 10. Instead of which King Rehoboam made shields of brass. No one wants brass. And committed them to the hands of the chief guard, and kept the entrance of the king's house. So now they're not gold. The royal bodyguards have brass shields, and not the fancy gold-plated ones that Solomon had made, or had craftsmen make. 11. And when the king entered into the house of the Lord, the guard came and fetched them and brought them again into the guard chamber. So here is Rehoboam being really egotistical and showy. He has to have this honor guard, this royal body, going with him as he goes in and out. 12. So here you're seeing Rehoboam turn not only from God in the ways of worship, but he is exalting himself. He is all of a sudden a very important person in his own eyes. 12. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, that he would not destroy him altogether, and also in Judah things went well. So he did humble himself, and that is true of us. When we humble ourselves, God will turn his wrath away from us. And things were good, and there were good things there. Also in Judah, things went well. They had the Levites and the priests and righteous who did worship as they should in the temple. 13. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned. For Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. Now, if you remember Ammon, he is the one who raped Tamar. Ammonites are Adamic people. They are the offspring of Lot and his daughter, and they worshipped Shemash. And also the Moabites are Adamic. They are descendants of Lot, and they also worshipped false gods. 14. And he did evil, because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. Why? He did not prepare his heart to seek the Lord. And when we read Paul's writing in the book of Romans, the ABCs of how to be a Christian, this is one of the things that he stresses, is seeking God, seeking him out and seeking him from the very beginning. 15. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet, and Iddo the seer concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. Well, you say, well, we don't have a book in the Bible named Shemaiah or Iddo. And what it is, that book there translated sayings, and you are reading what they said. So remember that David's prayer, he said he did not seek the Lord. Back in 1 Chronicles, David gave advice to Solomon, and his first line of advice was, seek the Lord and you will find him. And that is a lesson for us today, of course, too. And I said those books there, they are sayings. And now it said they had war. They did not have out-and-out war, but there were hostility and maybe some skirmishes, but they never did have out-and-out war between the North and the South. 16 completes this chapter. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, Jerusalem, and Abijah his son reigned in his stead. And of course, you remember that Abijah is like the fourth son of Jeroboam. He had 3 up ahead, so law has been violated in naming this child the successor to take the throne. Thank you for viewing this lesson. It has come to you as an outreach of the Essex Methodist Church in Essex, Missouri, and the Crossroads Global Methodist Church in Dexter, Missouri.